गुज़िश्ता दिनों मुस्लिम्स वोट प्रोजेक्ट के तहत 947 पर वाक़या पीस अकेडमी की खूबसूरत और नई बिल्डिंग में अमेरिका में होने वाले इंतखाबात के हवाले से एक दिलकश नशिस्त का इनेकाद किया गया। कम्युनिटी की मुमताज़ शख्सियत और ब्रुकलिन इमर्ज के CEO मरूफ पाकिस्तानी अमेरिकन बिजनेसमैन ज़करिया खान की ज़ेर निगरानी इस प्रोग्राम में नौजवान स्कॉलर शेख अदनानुद्दीन, शेख बुरहान, मुफ्ती अहमद करीम और मुफ्ती महराजुर रहमान ने शिरकत की और मुस्लिम्स एंड अमेरिकन इलेक्शंस 2024 पर अपने ख्यालात का इजहार किया। जामिया मस्जिद कुबा में खुतबा जुमा के अजीम फ़राइज़ अदा करने वाले नौजवान स्कॉलर्स का कहना था कि हुज़ूर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने मक्का की 13 साल ज़िंदगी के दौरान मुशरिकीन मक्का से तजारत और समाजी मामलात तय करते हुए अपने सफ़र को जारी और सारी रखा। आज हमें भी हुज़ूर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के उसवा हसना पर अमल करते हुए हत्ता के वोटिंग के अमल में शिरकत करना चाहिए। आइए देखते हैं एक इंतहाई एक्सक्लूसिव रिपोर्ट।
Alhamdulillah, when communities come together and they share their thoughts with each other, Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala will give them a way forward. So inshallah we will start with the short recitation of the Quran, inshallah. بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل. As you know, most of us, we are immigrants in this country, and this is the land of the immigrants. Historically, our ancestors, forefathers or fathers who came to this country, they were a little disengaged from the system because they thought we're going to come here, make money, and we will go back to our countries. But Allah has a plan. I mean, we had a plan, and then Allah had a bigger plan. So our parents, they stayed here because look, eventually, human beings, they always will compare what is better for them. So we always compare our land with this land and say, oh, this is better, you know. So now, alhamdulillah, now we have our second and third generations living in this country. This is our land, especially the youngsters who are born here, raised here. They do realize one fact, that this is our country, this is our land. And now this is not just my question, this is going to be the question of my next generation. This is going to be the questions of our next generations, you know. So anyway, alhamdulillah, you know, now this is our country. We will be living here, our children will be living here. So unless and until we have a fair representation in all fields, then my brothers, our children will have not a secure future, you know, in this country. So alhamdulillah for this, I think so many Muslims are realizing this. Right now, alhamdulillah, we have national level organizations, local level organizations, you know, who are actively participating, inshallah, in these elections, inshallah.
There are many aspects of politics. And as Muslims, we should understand all aspects of politics. And also, as Muslims, we should understand who we are. So as we know, as Muslim, our belief is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam. Verily, the religion, the perfect way of life, in according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is al-Islam. From the beginning of time till now. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a promise. هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with the guidance, and he will make sure, and definitely Islam will become prevalent and dominant over every other religion, every other ideology in the world. So someone might say, like the questions we have is, if we're living in this democratic system, inshallah probably discuss later, what does democratic mean? Demo means people, and krat means power. Power of the people. Like Abraham Lincoln says, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Right? It sounds nice, but Islamically it doesn't stand. Right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his main goal and objective was to make that state exist.
That those that Allah Ta'ala have given you this intellect. Not only did the United States give you this right of voting, but Allah Ta'ala gave you this intellect that you can make decisions. So one brother approached in regards to the flyer. It says Muslims and American elections, right? So there was an objection raised that Muslims and Americans is being segregated. We as Americans are Muslims. right? Those that are Americans, we have different types of, United States does not discriminate in terms of your religion. So you can be an American, you can be a Muslim, whichever way. It's wordplay. You want to be a Muslim American, you want to be American Muslim. Being Muslim is something that gives you a spiritual guidance, right? This is a way of life. And being an American is so many rights that you receive within this country. You're allowed to practice so many freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. You can go anywhere and pray. And another point that a lot of people may not understand, and they think that ulama should not partake in politics, which I agree. The ulama should not partake within the politics up front. But in the sense that if need comes to be, then an alim, who's an individual of upright moral character and understands society, right? You cannot just be an alim that knows about Islamic values and Islamic sciences, but you do not know anything about how society works or how voting or politics work. So you need to be an individual that has a good grip on both. And I think one alim or one scholar should go to the forefronts, and the other scholar should at least support him in any way. Being a politician is something that they compromise. You find any president, they go to one state, they'll hold a certain event, they're supporting them. They go to another event, they're supporting them. So they like to play the two-faced game also. So this is something that we as Americans should be careful of who we're voting for. Don't become gullible also.
So neither the right wing or the left wing will accurately represent the Islamic standpoint. Whether not only right wing or left wing, even the Green Party, etc., they will not accurately 100% represent the Islamic standpoint. They both are the right and the left and the green. So on the outside, as long as we understand that we're living in a country where to demand anything 100% Islamic or to make anything completely 100% Sharia compliant, it is a tough task, near impossible. So with that being said, we should have that in mind, that when we go into politics, or when we should have the intent that we want to positively influence legislation by pushing public opinion where that is conducive or that maintaining Islamic principles. So when you go into politics, our first intention should be that we want it to align, or you want it to be some way or shape or form which will benefit the Muslims or Islam.
What's the point of voting? You know, if I vote for this person or that person, Republican, Democrat, it's two sides of the same coin. They are right. They are right. It is two sides of the same coin. Now you have to see that the rule that we follow is called lesser of the two evils. At that point, what do? Do you vote or you don't vote? So the scholars, majority of the scholars, they say that voting, you should vote. It's allowed and you should. The reason why is if we start telling Muslims, oh, don't vote because their values or their laws, regulations don't align with Islam, then what's going to happen is that you have millions of Muslims who live in America, and they might start to hesitate, they might not vote, and what happens, that party that holds more values than the other party, whichever party it is, one party is going to hold a little bit more value to Islam than the other, that party that holds more value to Islamic values or aligns with Islamic values, more or less, they're losing out on millions of votes. So the scholars, they mentioned that you look at the lesser of the two evil, right? You look at both the parties, okay, this party will help Muslims more in this country than the other party. But the voting, when you're talking about voting, we're not talking about other people outside of the United States. We're talking about those people who are going to hold up the value of the Muslims of this country.
What's the point of voting if
both of the parties are wings of the same bird, given that our Congress is filled of dual citizens, Israeli citizen and American, right? Dual passports, and they'll put Zionism first. Not just our Congress, but also the CIA, the head of CIA is Zionist, and so on and so forth. When someone such as JFK tried to get APEC registered as a foreign entity, he got assassinated. Whenever someone goes against this agenda, nothing really works. If you look at George Bush, he actually lost the public vote. The Supreme Court had to step in and make him win, and we all know what he did. So that's my question. What's the point of voting if both of them are birds of the same wing? Because even if you have, let's say, someone who's more in line with Islamic values, anything anti-Zionist isn't going to pass because they have to get ratified by the Congress first, and the Congress is full of Zionists.
Yes, a lot of people may have an opinion, a conspiracy that, the entire system, if you vote or not vote, doesn't count. There's already a pre-planned, the big think tanks have already made a plan. We don't know that. It's one of those things that you could decide someone can hold an opinion. But if we're living in the United States and we have the opportunity to change the narrative for the next following years, we can leave a footprint for the next generation, even if we fail, even if we don't win. But don't become hopeless, don't become mayus. Don't worry, inshallah. Even though it's late than never, better late than never.
Authority belongs to Allah. We know that. But the question is, what can we as Muslims in this country, what can we do? And the reality is, even the time of Banu Israel, right? There were a group of people, they said, these people are dying, these people are doing evil, we have nothing to do with them, we give them, we don't care about them. Allah is going to destroy them. Allah said, وَإِذْ قَالَتْ أُمَّةٌ مِّنْهُمْ لِمَ تَعِذُونَ قَوْمًا اللَّهُ مُهْلِكُهُمْ أَمْ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا. So a group of Banu Israelites, they came to another group of Israelites, and they told them, لِمَ تَعِذُونَ قَوْمًا اللَّهُ مُهْلِكُهُمْ. Why are you advising? Why are you challenging? Why are you, giving da'wah to a group of people? مُعَذِّبُهُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to destroy them. And what they say? قَالُوا مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. We are doing this to excuse ourselves from our responsibility. Even though they'll be destroyed, even though they'll probably not even accept our da'wah. That's not our problem. That's not our business. Allah gave us a responsibility and we are doing our part. To excuse ourselves of that responsibility. So we should save them with us. Even though things might not change 100%. But the point is, even if 1% changes, alhamdulillah for us. If we're able to lessen the evil by 1%, alhamdulillah. If we're able to bring 1% benefit, alhamdulillah. We could tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we tried our best and we brought even 1% change or 2% change. And I believe that Muslims, about 5 million Muslims living in America, and if we actually have a political stance, inshallah, in the future, and if we ally ourselves with other people who are living in America, even they're not Muslims, like even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's a person named Mut'im ibn Adi. He was not a Muslim, but he was a very generous person. He was a kafir, non-Muslim. But he actually always stood with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they wanted to isolate the Muslims and not trade with them, he stood up. He said, I'm going to give protection to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to vouch for him because of his generosity. He's a non-Muslim, right? So we're going to find politicians in America, inshallah, who will sympathize with us, and in the future, even we will find people who are, Mexicans and blacks and Republicans and all types of people who are allied with us.
It's like 1.35% of the entire United States. And subhanAllah, if you are not going to either collectively and make sure that you do anything, you do it collectively, right? Not let it segregate. Even if you have a difference of opinion, let it be, but don't let it segregate you in terms of your religion, that you still consider your other person to be your Muslim brother. And another point that needed to be made mention was, as all the shuyukh, mashallah, they mentioned the principles. We find the Republican Party, they hate Muslims, but they follow with Muslim values, right? Generally. And then we have the Democrats, they like the Muslims, but they're against Islamic values. As we find the LGBTQ in all the small letters, and then we have, abortion laws, something that Muslims hold these things very valuable because it's their Islamic values and beliefs and according to their lifestyle. This is how they preserve society. And then you have the Democrats who are completely opposite to that. Inshallah, we'll get into a little more of a detail to that. And when it comes down to the choosing the lesser of the two evil, we find a tradition. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and the translation is, he who is confronted with two crucial decisions, then he should opt for the decision that is less detrimental. Mullah Qari makes mention of this. So you should choose that which is less detrimental, especially for your society, for your state. And the brother mentioned in regards to the Senate, there's zero Muslim representation in the Senate. Obviously the individuals that are there, the majority of them are Zionists. And in the House of Representatives, we only have 4. 2 are converts, and I believe 2 Minnesota, 1 from Michigan, Rashida Talib, and another. There's only 4. So these are the types of things to think about. Yes, even though they're 4, and they're all 4 are Democratic. One brother asked yesterday, he said that when they took an oath, is it fard for me to go and vote? It's not fard for you, but it becomes your option and a right, and it's your right because now you became a U.S. citizen, you have the haqq. You can go choose how you want to live in this country. Do you want to live as, the youngsters like to say NPC, right? Or you want to live like an individual that's helping society. As Muslims, that's what we are. We help and thrive and make society better, whichever platform it may be.
Yeah. I think I'm going to get to a couple points that you guys mentioned, especially Sheikh Adnan. You started off with saying that at the end of the day, and this is going to your question as well, Farhan, is that we in America as Muslims, we are in the belly of the beast, right? We are the ones that can create the change. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us, what did you do in your power? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to ask you about what was not in your control, right? So what is in our control right now is that we have the power to vote. We have the power to change the direction of the Muslim community. Not only the Muslim community, but in the decades to come, the American community, right? As Muslims, we are not just here for ourselves. We are not just here for our community, but what can we do for the rest of the community? So now I'm going to get to the lesser of two evils. Individuals, if we follow it, we should follow it, right? As individuals, when it comes to picking 1 or 2 options, which is lesser of two evils. Now getting into the elections this year around especially, what does that mean for us if we pick the lesser of two evils? The lesser of two evils is who? We are saying that that's Kamala and Harris and whatnot, right? Now what happens is that over the past decades or 2 decades, the Muslim community, at least those of that vote, that are involved in the political process, they choose the lesser of two evils. And what happens is that on a long-term basis, it becomes more evil and evil and evil. We know, as Sheikh mentioned, that both of these parties, they stem from the same principles, the same enlightenment principles, where they're not following Islam, right? Islam is the haqq, and we need to follow the haqq. And if we say that, the lesser of two evils is going to continue, and we don't have something to offer the community, we will get stuck with that specific evil. So now getting into what should we do as Muslim Americans? There's another principle that says that we need to stop the means. What does that mean? Stopping the means of that specific evil. I think Sheikh Mufti Kareem mentioned it a little bit. Now, looking into what are our options this year around. If Harris loses, Kamala Harris and whatnot, if she loses, Zionism loses. The brother was saying that Zionism controls both parties, they have so much power, they have this and this and this. Yes, we agree, no problem. They have the power, they have the money, they have the politicians in their pockets, no problem. As Muslim Americans, we have the power of what? Number 1, we have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's number 1. Number 2, we have the people. We have the people. If they were not scared, if the Zionists were not scared, they would not try to ban TikTok. If they were not scared, they would not try to buy out the politicians. In Westchester County, they bought up Bowman. Who stood up for who? He stood up for the Palestinians. In Cori Bush, in Mississippi, she stood up for who? She stood up for the Palestinians. She caused the ceasefire. She lost. They both lost because of that. If the Zionists are spending millions and millions of dollars on those campaigns just to overthrow who? Overthrow those politicians, then what does that tell you? That means they're scared. They're scared of what? People. Of us. Of not just Muslims, but even like-minded Americans, right? Americans that want a ceasefire in Gaza and they want to free Palestine, etc., right? So now when we say that if Harris loses, Zionism loses. Now, what should we do next?
Remember, you need to understand, this is why they teach us the three branches, and they teach you a lot of the things about how U.S. politics works, and it's very important. I think we should hold in a workshop how U.S. politics works for our community. And then we have so many Muslims, especially in the Michigan. We're actually in the ninth district, right? So these are the certain things that a lot of people didn't even know. Which district are we living in? Who's our representative in the House of Congress, right? It's Clark? Clark.
Yeah, with Clark.
So I didn't know how to pronounce the first name.
You have 29 representatives.
Yeah.
29 people in Congress.
Yvette Clark. Yeah.
Yvette.
So for the Michigan brothers, they got Rashida Talib in the 13th district. And then you also have Thomas Massey, right? Who's also, yes. So these are certain things that we need to take care of. And going back to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam created social change, right? He created social change community-wise, how we can organize ourselves. I'm not using the word mobilize, I'm using how we can organize ourselves.
ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدينا ولأساتذتنا ولمشايخنا ولأحبابنا ولجميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيته ولا معطي لما منعته ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد اللهم احسن عاقبتنا في الأمور كلها وأجرنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك